voting for Kamala?
I am.
She was tasked to control the border. How is she done?
The vice president doesn't control the border.
They
There's
get
agencies.
portfolio projects from the president. She was given the portfolio project of the border. How is she done?
Again, she doesn't make any individual. I don't think she makes a top-down decision about the border.
She made a decision to reverse 50 Trump executive orders. Do you think Kamala Harris has done an objectively good job managing our border?
No.
Okay. I appreciate the honesty. Thank you.
So Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. The videos have been going viral. Of course, you might have seen it by now. If you have, it's the most horrifying and gruesome thing you'll probably see in your lifetime. It's awful just to see the life draining from this man immediately when all he was trying to do was debate ideas. And of course, when weak, pathetic people can't win an argument in the marketplace of ideas, they turn to violence. And that's what we are dealing with now. Weak, pathetic people who cannot win an argument. And that's why they had to get rid of this guy, right? Because he was cool under pressure, he was very articulate, and he was intelligent, he knew all his points, and he was unbeatable. And he was changing people's minds. That's the truth. That's the power of the truth, is that when you have all your facts together, you are unstoppable. And the only way you can be stopped, I guess, is in this case with a bullet. So, as an artist, how do I see this turn of events? Well, I'm heartbroken. Many of my artist friends are heartbroken. Of course, being an artist, you are in a predominantly leftist field. So we are surrounded by a lot of artists who are being less than considerate, we'll say that, and some of them just being downright disgusting in their response. It's hard to deal with. It's hard to maintain compassion, but it is a test of our will, of our ability to be good humans, even in the face of terrible, disgusting trash humans. We can be the better people, and that's what this is a test of. I do think, though, that this is a historical moment, especially from like an art history perspective. I do believe there's going to be a lot of artwork that will resonate in the future, that will be remembered as time goes on. We're going to see that there is people who are awake, and then not all of the artists have been so brainwashed as most of them have. In the left, especially, pretty much anyone in that camp who isn't moderate has pretty much been co-opted and coerced by the radical left to celebrate these things, or at least, if not anything, at least defend it and justify it, which it is unjustifiable and indefensible. But that's the problem with the art world and the role that art plays in propaganda. You know, this is the perspective that I always have on it when I look at popular culture and how music videos and, you know, artists who create the work, who do the set designs, who do all of this stuff, you know, it's all art. And if you notice, most of it is propaganda made to shape society and to sway public opinion. And they've paid off a lot of these big time celebrated musicians and artists to continue pushing these ridiculous perspectives and completely biased opinions that never seem to pan out both ways. You know, one of the things that I notice that always aggravates me is how I notice that, for instance, in 2020 with the George Floyd riots, so many artists in the local community here in Houston and abroad, just all over the world, you saw it on the internet, they were creating George Floyd murals and artworks and all kinds of memorabilia, and you know, they got totally behind Saint George Floyd of, you know, this Saint Floyd of fentanyl, who overdosed on fentanyl in the coroner's report, by the way, that he didn't die of being asphyxiated. But they rushed to paint murals for him for free. I remember seeing artists saying like, please just give me a wall so I can paint a picture of this man. But no solidarity, none of that at all. Not a peep from these people about Charlie Kirk. No solidarity for Charlie Kirk at all. I mean, not even like a post or like, nothing. I checked. Those same guys are just going about their business as if nothing has happened. But you believe me that when they, the next time somebody gets the slightest bit of bad treatment on the left, that we will hear about it, and there will be marches, and they will be burning down cities, literally burning down cities. And that's an interesting contrast too. Don't you notice how when George Floyd died by his own overdosing and his own just ill will, he pulled a gun on a pregnant woman and he was counterfeiting money. He wasn't a cool, nice guy. And they burned down cities and made people feel even less safe and just really wrecked what a civil society should be. Contrast that with the response to Charlie Kirk. How much burning and looting have you seen on this side? No, all you've seen is candlelight vigils and people praying and trying to come together in calmness and peace and love. Because I think you can see through that contrast who's really on the side of good and who actually has evil in their heart. And which one of those paths do you want to take? Because I know the path I've chosen. I'm not going with evil. I may like dark art. I love exploring the dark side of things. It's a fascination, but it's not where I dwell. It's not where I want to live. It's not where I want my soul to remain. It's just a part of recognizing the shadow side. It's a part of integration, of integrating the light and the dark that both coexist within you. But the light must win. You should be pushing towards, at least I believe, towards the light. And it's amazing to me because I'm not even like a Christian or anything, but I just understand what morals play in a civil society and how the breakdown of a moral code, such as the one that this country was founded upon, which is basically a Judeo-Christian state, even though we do not want to be ruled by any religion, but we do have a moral code that our laws have been based upon. And it's quite obvious where they came from. And everybody seems to agree for quite a long time that those were good morals. And you see now how far we've strayed as a society. That's what this really marks to me. And I think to a lot of people, it's really quite a watershed moment in our society where we have to come to terms with the fact that we've gone too far, right? We've let these people go too far, perhaps is really what I mean. We've allowed this to go for too long. We've allowed all the political violence that we've seen ramping up ever since 2016, ever since Donald Trump became president and kind of changed the landscape of the politics of our nation. We've just seen the ramping up of political violence. And it started from the left. Proud Boys was an answer to Antifa. Antifa was around for quite a while, for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden you started seeing Proud Boys coming up because people were getting tired of getting their shit kicked out of them on the street just for exercising their free speech and political views. After so many people getting the shit kicked out of them and having bike locks smashed into their head, some tough guys actually rose to the occasion and started kicking the shit out of those puny little Antifa. And now they're not such a problem anymore, and now all of a sudden people are trying to point at the Proud Boys when it's like, look, just because they were stronger and more effective at kicking ass doesn't mean they were the problem. All right. It was an answer to a problem. And that's all that this ever seems to be. But we're always being given that spin from the leftist media. And it's mind blowing that people buy into this crap. Like they don't remember. They have no memory of how Antifa was there first causing all this harm, bloodying up protesters and people, for exercising free speech. This is something that the left has been doing for a long time, okay? We've been watching it. We're aware that they are actively trying to silence us by intimidation, and that's exactly what this was too. This is an intimidation tactic. It's made to make us feel vulnerable and and fear them, right? Fear for your life. You can't speak out, right, in public, or you might wind up like this guy, right? Like Charlie Kirk. So that will probably work on many people, because there is that whole, life preservation thing, but it's also going to activate a lot of people. A lot of people are going to start getting more vocal, and we're going to start standing up to you even more. I tend to lean towards that side. I haven't done a video in a while, but I felt called to do this video because I think we all should. Anybody who feels called to voice their opinion about this and stand in solidarity with Charlie Kirk, and just make your voice be known. Let people know that this is not okay, that you do not accept this route of political discourse, of upheaval, of chaos in our society. If you don't accept that as the future of the new normal, then we need to stand in front of it, stand in the way of this, and not allow these just absolute buffoons and crazy psychotic people, that are activated by the buffoons and by all the mirrors in the echo chambers that they're living in. And we have to do something. We can't continue to allow this. So I'm looking forward to hopefully people on the right being a bit more proactive and at least defending and looking out for our speakers, and just, we've got to do a little better, apparently, because this is apparently going to be something that we might have to deal with more so in the future, as these leftists are being, well, they've been dragged into a cult, and that's honestly, we've all been a bit propagandized, I think, for the most part. If you're on the left or the right, you've been fed a diet of all kinds of propaganda showing you the extremes from both sides, and it's atomizing. And really, the online culture of not speaking to people face to face is destroying us. Okay, so I think there's actually a great video about this, and I'll probably link it or maybe play some. And it's interesting. You really should take a look at the psychology of how we're all being played against each other, because again, it's all about divide and conquer. I've been saying this since 2020 when I started making these kind of videos, is that I was seeing how they were pitting us against each other back then, and it's obviously just gotten worse. But the solution is to be like Charlie Kirk, I think, is to talk to people in person. Right? We have to start treating each other like neighbors again, because that's what we are. We're actually all just human neighbors sharing this green earth. And we all want the same thing. We all want a good, clean world. We all want a nice, beautiful environment and prosperity. And there's more than enough for everybody. If everything, if our countries were actually geared towards helping us and conserving the things that we need, it could all work out. There's plenty. Don't be convinced that there's not enough and we need to depopulate, okay? Because the only people who are saying that are the elites who want to take all of the resources. Notice they never depopulate. Depopulation is only for you, all right? The little people. And anybody pushing depopulation, I encourage you to set an example by self-immolating. But we do need to be smart, strong, and cunning. We have to be better, but we cannot give in to hate. There's, it's just, again, looking into history, you can't really fight fire with fire. You have to extinguish it with love, because more fire will just consume us all. It's just going to consume this entire nation, and it will all burn down. And that's exactly what the elites want. They want the divide and conquer, because they will be there to pick up the remnants of this society when we're done burning each other down and there's nothing left. They want us basically to exterminate ourselves. And of course, they're helping us with GMOs and all that stuff. But we do have RFK right now, the only person I've ever seen in my lifetime attacking those things and actually making progress, getting fluoride out of the water, and that's just amazing right there. That could have been the one thing that I get out of a presidency, and I would have been happy with that, but they're delivering on a lot of other fronts. So there's a lot of good things happening amongst all the bullshit happening right now. But I am a bit worried that there's just so many people, especially in my local art community, who have their heels so far dug into these political alignments, especially though on the left, that we're not going to be able to hear each other and talk to each other anymore. And I've already seen how, just because of some online spats that I thought were just that, next time I saw one of those artists, he just, acted like he didn't even recognize me. And fine, I don't need more friends, but it was just an indication to me of like how immature, I guess, the newer generations are, and a lot of people, I guess, just in general, how they can't handle a debate and then just shake hands and be friends at the end of it. But there is a lot of people who still are like that, and I keep trying to focus on the good and focus on the fact that I just hung out last night with tons of different artists. We didn't talk about any politics. We probably see very differently on a lot of issues, but we also see eye to eye on a lot of issues too. And I also love the fact, though, that there is a lot of these people out there beyond the internet. There's actually people out there who treat others like people, and we actually get along and have a great time. And, even though we believe so fervently about these things differently and the solutions, at least for them, but we can somehow, when you're in the same space with someone that you've known, and all of a sudden all those differences kind of dissolve a bit, and you're faced with their humanity, and you're faced with the fact that, hey, this is like, a real person that I otherwise respect and enjoy their company. So why am I going to let some commentator or anything that I saw online, why am I going to let some memes or some videos online change the way I feel about somebody that's been in my life? That's how you get propagandized. That's the cult pulling you in, when people online are pulling you away from the people in your actual life, your family and friends that used to be a part of your life and who loved you and respected you. If you find yourself distancing from them, then you might just check and see, like, hey, wait a minute, who forced me? What made me go that way? Because a lot of times it's not even your ideas. It's somebody else's ideas that got planted in yours through a series of layers of propaganda. And so I'm just constantly checking myself. Anytime I start feeling myself getting like super enraged and wanting to start cutting some ties, I try to step back. And so that's what I've done. That's why it took me a while to even put out a video. I wanted a few days to kind of just mull over this and go through the emotions, because I was filled with a lot of sadness at first, and then a lot of anger, and now I guess acceptance, and just trying to find a way forward, because I don't want to continue seeing this country get stupider and devolve into this idiocracy that it's turning into now, where people can't debate, so they have to kill the person that they dislike their speech, instead of maybe learning that you're wrong, or maybe just get better at your arguments, but yeah, it's just so cowardly. It's so small-minded. It's not the way of a civilized society. It's not the way forward for humanity. I don't see that as the way. The way is debate. The way is in the marketplace of ideas. Your ideas have to win, and if they don't, sorry, loser, you had something, and it just ain't working, And we have to move on. We have to move on with what works, because we've tried these socialist experiments for far too long, and it is what has gutted the American taxpayer. All these socialist systems that are just funding wars that have nothing to do with us, while our infrastructure crumbles and our children are taught how to, all the dirty, nasty stuff that they shouldn't even be taught, things that aren't even true, that they can change their sex. That's not true. You will always have XY chromosomes or XX chromosomes. When your skeleton is dug up 1,000 years from now, they will be able to determine your gender. And that's what they'll do, and it'll be one or the other. And all this nonsense is dialectic chaos made to put us at each other's throats, where we can't even agree on terms and basic biology. And we're actually fighting about some pretty stupid stuff. Like, I don't even want to debate that anymore. That's such a waste of time. But what we really could be debating is the ideas that Charlie was debating, because apparently they were quite controversial. Apparently they were quite effective. So I'm going to continue watching more Charlie Kirk videos. I never watched any of his videos because I thought he had a fat head. And now I feel quite silly for, just picking on him because he looked kind of funny. And I felt like, whatever. I was always happy that there was a guy out there who was holding debate. That's cool. I didn't need to hear the message. I think I pretty much was already mostly aligned with what he had to say. And but the point is that hold the debate, right? Let's have the talk. And I think that's the way forward. That's what I'm really inspired by when I look at him and I think about like how would Charlie, want us to continue forward. And I do believe that Charlie would want us to continue talking to people in person, in public. He wouldn't want you to hide. He wasn't afraid. He died for that courage. And so I think we all owe it to him and the ones before him, like Martin Luther King Jr., who were brave enough to say the thing that they knew that they could get unlifed for. And eventually they did. But yeah, definitely start seeing the people in your life as neighbors and not the crazy libtards and MAGA hicks that we're all portrayed to be. And even if you are one of those crazy people on one of those extremes, I still probably have more in common with you, and you have more in common with me than either of us have with these elites, with the shadow government, with these corporate donors who have all the politicians in their pocket. We have more in common, so it's time to come together. And as soon as we can break that illusion of that they are trying to use as a divide and conquer tactic, as soon as we break that spell, we can actually pretty much disassemble the system that is destroying us and kind of get back to a representative republic, right? Because right now it's been usurped, and it's really crazy when you're kind of watching. We obviously have people in there who are trying to do things and trying to change things right now, and we're seeing that they are being met with the utmost resistance. A lot of the things that they said they could do, they're being stonewalled and having to change their tune on now. So we have a lot to deal with, but I do think there's a way out. I mean, there's got to be. We have to have some hope for the future, right? And the hope is to change people's minds. And that's why they tried to stop Charlie, is because he was effectively changing minds. So that's a bad on them, though, because unfortunately, even though his life was ended way too short and he's no longer going to continue to evolve that message, so much of what he said is just flooding the internet now. People like me who'd never listened to any of his speeches or debates are now going through them, and just we're all starting to see what a wonderful message he had and what a wonderful delivery he had, and learning from him and his example and his fearlessness. I think those are the things to take from it. And for the art community again, though, I come back to this as an artist. It is very disgusting to see T-shirt designs with an image of Charlie Kirk, a cartoon drawing of him with with a bullet wound in his neck, splattering blood all over the place, and saying like, obviously it's like some kind of like congratulatorily celebrative glee fest. It's disgusting. It's so gross that people are responding like that, and that people would buy those shirts. It's just, honestly, this is a very bad commentary on where we are as a country, as a society. It kind of makes you wonder if this country is redeemable, but I do think that there's more of us, there's more good people than there are bad, and just there's, unfortunately, there is a large amount of people, more than I think maybe some of us thought at one point, that have been radicalized and turned into these kind of monsters right now. But I do believe that even though they're exhibiting monstrous behavior, there is a human on the other side of that. You know, it's just it's the cult programming, and when you get programmed into a cult, you start doing illogical things, and that's how it works. Is once you've accepted the cult hive mind, right? Then you believe that whatever the hive mind says, like, I go along with, right? So you get your marching orders from the leaders, and so that's the scary thing about the Democratic Party, is that they are so gung-ho about the hive mind and the establishment, and they really think that this is the way forward, is just to kind of believe all of the establishment talking points, and if it didn't come from the MSNBC or CNN, that it's propaganda or it's BS. You know, like they won't even read like very like middle of the road articles that have a little bit of commentary and that kind of put the points together and show you like, hey, how like you're seeing this all wrong. I've pointed at a few of these recently, and the leftist will just excuse it off. I mean, they'll always come up with an excuse to not listen to you. And so I'm just coming up against this like really bad place where I'm like, I want to be reasonable and I want to talk through this like Charlie Kirk would, but I see now that he was a better man than I in that regard, that because I tried, and maybe it's just because I'm still a bit emotional about what just happened. But, you know, I saw somebody posting a meme about like, before you start getting all angry about, you know, the Charlie Kirk assassination, remember that Republicans started all this. And I'm like, what? You know, like, come on, do people really believe that? I mean, you can't possibly really believe that. But sure enough, I mean, you know, these people really believe this stuff, and they go through this little list of like, you know, half of them are like not even like anything like a big deal, and pretty much all of them, I know that if you were to research deeper into, they would like, I know for two off the bat that I saw on there, I knew it was like, oh yeah, that one was a hoax. That wasn't actually a Republican. You know, it came out later in the news that they were a staunch Democrat, and they were trying to get rid of this Democrat candidate, because they were not, you know, extreme left enough. So they were trying to make room for their extreme left candidate. But you didn't catch all that in the news. They just said, you know, killed by right winger. And by the time anybody got around to finding out the truth, they've already moved on to the next lie. It's the drive-by media, as Rush Limbaugh would call it. And it's just, okay, so then you have that, and then you have other examples where it's just a complete falsehood. You know, even with this new, I just saw that people were trying to say that the shooter, the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, was actually a Republican. I'm like, that sounds a bit off, you know? I mean, just without having to research anything, I'm kind of I'm reading this, and I'm getting a no. You know, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that he was pushing the Republican agenda forward so well, and obviously was a threat to the Democrats and the commies. I don't know. Something just told me that they wouldn't want to get rid of this guy, you know, who was doing so much for their movement. But call me crazy, I don't know. But that was just my intuition. Sure enough, I just saw today, it's come out now that yes, his family was pretty much all Republican. And when you read that about a shooter, oh, his family was all Republican. Where, I don't even know how you make that leap that, oh, well, that means he must have been a Republican. Like, do you not know any people who are surrounded by a political party who think differently? I mean, how much life experience do you actually have? So yeah, the dude was surrounded by a Republican family, was fed up with it. He hated it. You know, he hated them and all their beliefs, and talked shit about them all the time. You know, he was the black sheep, I guess, of that family. And this was his end game. But it wouldn't have taken a rocket scientist to figure out that the person that killed this right-wing speaker must have been somebody who disliked the agenda, right? But no, this is not common sense, not to them. No, they have no common sense. They just roll with whatever they hear. Anything that can excuse them and make them feel no empathy or responsibility for this, they will take it because they are cowardly people. And that's what I've learned about the Democrat Party is it appeals to the most cowardly, to the most weak, and the most disenfranchised people. And that's how it gets them. It digs into your base nerves and emotions and extracts your pain and then uses that as fuel to get you to vote. But they never change anything. They just squander all your money and get rich off of it. And I've seen that locally, and I've seen it nationally, and I've seen it internationally. It's just, this is why freedom is the way forward. Less money to the government, because they will squander whatever we give them. All right. And you don't keep giving more money to a kid who just keeps wasting it all on fucking cocaine or something, right? You start cutting them off. At some point, when you realize they're not going to do what they said they were going to do with that money and, save up for a car or, whatever it's supposed to be, that at some point you have to say, okay, you know what? I'm cutting you off until you do something responsible with your life. No more money, And so that's really, in a nutshell. I mean, I'm kind of rambling, but this goes everywhere. This is such a massive shift. I mean, I really do. I feel a massive shift going on here. And this has exposed the rot in our society that has been perpetuated by our industry, the art industry, the entertainment industry. It has been perpetuated by the arts. And this marks anybody who disagrees with the establishment handed down talking points and the social justice, that they tell you, okay, well, here's your social justice points. You can make art about this and you can talk about this and talk about how wrong that was, that St. Floyd of fentanyl got taken down for a little long, even though he was saying I can't breathe in the back of the car before he even got taken down onto the sidewalk. They tell him everything that they can, that is accepted. But you already know, if it's anything having to do with a right-winger and suffering, tragedy, a violation of their amendments, silence, crickets. They're not going to say anything. And what they will say is that, he deserved it because he was spewing Nazi propaganda. Because, of course, anytime you're saying something that they don't like, that they can't have no strong rebuttal for, because you have logic on your side, if they can't penetrate your logic with their lies, then you just get labeled Nazi. And then all of a sudden, hey, and of course, if you've been radicalized to that point where you're one of these poor, soft-headed people who think that anybody who goes against the Democrat Party is a Nazi, well then it doesn't feel so bad, right, to shoot a Nazi. I'm just taking out a Nazi. And so all of these media propaganda wings and the institutions, the art institutions that promote only their side of the argument and never represent the majority of America, because that's who we are. We voted Donald Trump in by a vast majority twice, probably even 3 times if you really look into that one in the middle there. And Biden couldn't fill a fucking gymnasium with his freaking lack of anything. I mean, what could that guy do other than bumble and stumble and shit his pants? All right. He made no deals other than allowing wars to fire up with his incompetency. So we are not Nazis. We are just Americans, We're just freedom-loving people who love the free speech and love the Second Amendment. And Charlie Kirk lived and died by those principles, and he would want us to do the same. I will do the same. I always have. I don't think any of us need to be afraid. That would be them winning, and we're not going to let them win that. No, we're going to win the hearts and minds of people, because people are going to continue to see the more that you guys try to kill us off or, silence us with your intimidation tactics and debanking us and ruining our careers, like especially in the arts communities. I have to basically make my own way now. This is why I speak directly to my audience, because the galleries won't represent me, and they will do everything in their power to stop me from rising up. But I believe that there is a a new America growing here. And I believe that there is a movement of truth that that's in the arts as well. I'm telling you, even though we're still predominantly leftist, there is a lot of right wingers, much more. I'm finding out all the time. I'm like, oh wow, even this like old school like graffiti artist that's been a part of like the Houston scene forever, and you know is known internationally. Like, oh yeah, he's pretty much secretly right wing. You know, he just doesn't put it out there a lot. But there's many of them, and I wouldn't even say right wing. That's just what the left would call us. It's actually, we're just, you know, centrist, populists, just regular Americans who believe in the Constitution. But that now is right wing. So I'll just wear the label if that's what you want to put on me. I wouldn't have put it there. I always considered myself a libertarian, but you know, call me right wing, call me a Nazi. I don't care. I'll wear it with a badge of honor that apparently I'm the next Charlie Kirk then, right? I'm making so much waves that you have to label me as a Nazi because you can't stand the influence that me or anybody who speaks up has. We're not going to be intimidated. We are going to hold space for Charlie Kirk's family though. And you know, it is a sad time, and I am still reeling from it, and a lot of us will be for a while. But I think it's just important to put out some of my thoughts about the subject, because it's just a lot to take in. It really is. It's so much to take in, especially with the poor innocent girl being brutally stabbed to death on the New York train. It was just a couple days before Charlie Kirk's assassination, and she was a Ukrainian refugee. So she escaped the bombing and devastation of Vladimir Putin and Russia, fled to America, all of that just to be taken out on a subway train by some deranged lunatic who was let out 17 times from jail by leftist judges. And even that last one who let him out that last time, that 17th time, was told by the convict's mother, do not let this man out on the street. He will hurt somebody. And they ignored his mother and let him out on the street. And now we have another senseless death, thanks to Democrats who believe in nothing but a million chances for a black man. But, you know, it's all in the name of social justice, right? It's all about equality and, equity, right? We all want to arrive at the same place. So prayers for her and her family too. So much to happen in such little time. I want to incorporate some of this into my future work. I mean, I'm sure it will find its way, perhaps subtly, so perhaps more overt. But I do feel a bit activated, honestly. Like with the loss of my mother earlier this year too, you know, I was devastated by that and just really just knocked down and couldn't do much art for a while out of just sheer depression. Having no parents now at 41, but I was just starting to kind of come out of it, and I've been kind of getting my mojo back, and now this Kirk thing, and you know, just again the girl on the subway, and you know, all this death lately. It just makes you feel like we're breaking away from an old world and into something new, and it's up to us to shape what that new world looks like. You know, if we just kind of sit by the sidelines and keep screaming and shouting like, oh my God, what are they doing? Like that, then we're just going to keep dealing with it, and it's just going to keep getting worse. But we do have to stop fighting. We have to come together, because I want to try to maybe just end with this thought then. Like, I remember the last time I saw the art community and just basically the world at large, or at least our nation at large, people were coming together back during the bank bailouts of 2008 with the whole Occupy Wall Street. And I remember me as a libertarian, I was able to walk, you know, side by side with leftists, and we marched down Houston City Hall, and we held our signs, you know, and I had a sign that said, you know, end the Fed, you know, something like that. Ron Paul quote. Yeah, we had like this Ron Paul revolution, and all these leftists and right-wing people all coming together, and we were actually coming together and defining our common enemy, the real enemy, all this time. And that's when they got really fucking scared. And that's where they broke that shit up. They started saying the Tea Party was nothing but racists, you know, and that they succeeded in scaring people off from that movement just by the taboo of saying, hey man, you're hanging out with racists. Didn't you know that? Like, I remember it scared me off. And man, wow, they really succeeded in the psychological warfare of turning us against each other, of calling anybody who is gaining too much ground with information and logic, call them a Nazi, call them racist, whatever, right? And it's been working, and it's been working way too easy on us, okay? I really hope that this could possibly, you would think that this would be a moment where we could all come together and be decent, you know? Like, I was thinking, like, you know, obviously it was wrong that Charlie Kirk got assassinated on a college campus like that, right? Right, leftists? No, like, come on, please, really? No, you're not celebrating, are you? Oh my fucking God. You people are disgusting. I mean, the people mocking and celebrating, or at least defending or justifying it, are just disgusting. And it is that cult mind control. And I'm just wondering, are they a lost cause? Because I want to get forward and I want us all to talk, but I do think there are some people that are just too far radicalized that you're just wasting your time, you know? And that's kind of the conclusion I've come to, is that, at least for me at this point, I'm going to speak my mind to who I can, but those who I can clearly see, like, there's no getting through, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to spend my time and energy on savable people, you know, like on people who might possibly awaken, some people who are on their way to being awakened, and you can kind of see, like, you know, I've been down that road. There's levels to awakening, and you can see when somebody's actually at least searching for truth. I mean, that's the early stage of it, right? When you're actually willing to look at the other side's argument, you're not just living in your echo chamber. And then when you start actually researching the other side, and then realizing, oh my God, there's all this truth and all this stuff buried by you know, all these independent journalists and people who are not part of the system. And the system always calls them fake news and conspiracy theories and untrustworthy. Yet notice, those mainstream sources always get everything wrong on any kind of commentary or hot take. They're always freaking wrong. They're always proven wrong down the line, and they never apologize and they never rectify the record. And yet all these conspiracy theorists are right way more often. So it's worth doing your due diligence and studying if you do care about the truth. If you don't want to just live in a cult and just take somebody's word for it, you know, I think it's important for us all to think for ourselves, question authority. And I think as long as people are doing that, the truth will find its way. But there's a lot of them who are not searching for the truth. There's a lot of people who are just comfortable with the lies they've been told and the little bubble world that they've been living in, because it's comfy and squishy and easy, and you get all your answers handed to you, and you just obey the system and just keep spouting its talking points, and it will reward you. You will be rewarded in Valhalla for sacrificing your life and your children's genitals at the altar of wokeness. That's the idea, right? Is that you will live on forever somehow, maybe in a simulation when they download all your DNA and your memories and upload it to the cloud, you know, and you can be immortal, and you don't have to be fixed into this body, and you can change your gender, and you know, all this like transhumanist garbage. None of it's true. All right? None of it's true. Maybe someday, but we're nowhere near that technology right now. You're being fed a lie, and you should be proud of the way you were born. You know, God or nature, you know, it made you the way you are, and you live with it. We all have our deficiencies, and that's just life, man, you know? So I'm really sorry about the Charlie Kirk thing. I'm sorry that I didn't listen to him or think much of him until now, but I am happy that now I get to know a bit more about him and that he was a voice of reason. And I do just hope that we can all be like him and be brave and speak with conviction and speak to people face to face. That's the main thing. That's what they're trying to destroy with his death, with his assassination. And that's what we can't let them destroy. We are neighbors of each other. We are brothers in this world. And we need to treat each other like that. So that's all. That's all I think about that for now. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Rest in peace to all the other political assassinations. And let's try to not let this become a trend. And let's do what we can to wake people up. Peace and love, y'all. Best of energies. Keep creating worlds out there.